Yuna had never seen the stars. She had never seen the sun rise over Earth or watched the lights of a city come alive at night. She was born blind, and in her 32 years of life, she had never known what light looked like, but she understood light better than anyone else in the galaxy. This was the strange truth about Yuna. She could not see, but she had become one of humanity's greatest optical engineers. She built devices that worked with light. She created machines that could bend it, shape it, and translate it into meaning. People often said it was ironic. A blind woman who worked with light. But Yuna never thought of it that way. She thought of it as a challenge she had already won. Now she sat in a small laboratory on a space station called Harmony's Edge. The station floated in neutral space, far from any planet or government. 12 different alien species came here to trade, to talk, and sometimes to argue. It was supposed to be a place of peace. But Yuna knew better. Peace was always more complicated than it looked. Her laboratory was cramped and full of equipment. Wires hung from the ceiling. Screens displayed data she could not see, but could hear through her special earpiece. Her fingers moved quickly across a workbench, assembling tiny pieces of technology that would become something important. A visor. A prototype. Something that had never been built before. The door slid open behind her. Yuna did not turn around. She knew who it was from the sound of his footsteps. "You should eat something," said Tejo. He was young, maybe 25, and he worried too much. He had been assigned as her assistant 2 years ago, and since then, he had made it his personal mission to keep her alive. "You have been working for 11 hours. "I ate," Yuna said. This was a lie. She had forgotten to eat. She often forgot when she was working on something important. Tejo sighed. She heard him walk closer, heard him set something down on the table beside her. The smell of hot noodles reached her nose. "Eat," he said again. "The visor will still be there in 20 minutes. Yuna stopped working. She picked up the bowl and began to eat, more because Tejo would not leave until she did than because she was hungry. The noodles were good. Salty, warm. She had not realized how cold her fingers had become. The Velith ambassador sent another message. Tejo said while she ate. "He says his people do not want humans on the station. He says we are too primitive to understand their language." Yuna smiled at this. It was not a happy smile. "That is exactly why we are here." The Velith were one of the 12 species on Harmony's Edge. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed in different colors. They did not speak with words like humans did. Instead, their bodies produced light. Patterns of light that moved across their skin like living art. Their language was beautiful, everyone agreed. But no one could understand it except other Velith. This was the problem Yuna had been sent to solve. Earth's government wanted to trade with the Velith. They wanted to understand them. But how could you understand a species when you could not read their words? The answer was the visor. Yuna had been working on it for 3 years. It was designed to read the light patterns the Velith produced and translate them into human language. If it worked, it would change everything. Humans would finally be able to communicate with one of the most mysterious species in the galaxy. But Yuna had made changes to the design. Secret changes. The original visor was only meant to translate. Her version did something more. It connected directly to her brain. She had not told anyone about this. Not Tejo, not Earth's government, not the station's administration. She had kept it secret because she knew they would stop her if they found out. The visor was dangerous. Connecting technology directly to a human brain was risky. Things could go wrong. She could be hurt. But Yuna did not care about the risk, because if the visor worked, she would not just understand the Velith. She would see them. For the first time in her life, she would see something. Not normal vision. The The visor could not give her that, but something else. A different way of seeing. A way of perceiving the world through light and energy and heat. It was worth any risk. She finished the noodles and set down the bowl. Her fingers found the visor on the workbench. It was small and light, shaped to fit over her eyes. The surface was smooth and cool. "Is it ready?" Taiho asked. He was looking at the visor too. He did not know what she had done to it. He thought it was just a translator. "Almost," Yuna said. "One more day. Maybe two. The ambassador will not be happy." "The ambassador is never happy." Yuna turned the visor over in her hands, feeling its weight. "That is not my problem. My problem is making this work." Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. "I worry about you, Yuna. This station is not safe. The Velith do not want us here. Some of the other species look at humans like we are insects. And you work alone in this small room for hours and hours." He paused. "What if something happens to you?" Yuna set the visor down gently. She turned toward Taiho, even though she could not see his face. "Something will happen to me," she said quietly. "Tomorrow, or the day after. When I put on this visor, everything will change." She smiled, and this time it was a real smile. Full of hope. Full of fear. "I'm going to see the universe for the first time, Taiho, and nothing will ever be the same after that." Taiho did not understand what she meant. He thought she was being poetic. He did not know that she meant it literally, but he would understand soon. Everyone would. The blind engineer was about to open her eyes. The morning came slowly on Harmony's edge. There was no sun here, no natural light to mark the passing of hours. But the station systems dimmed and brightened on a cycle, pretending to be day and night. Yuna felt the change in the air. She felt the warmth of the artificial morning touching her skin. Today was the day. She had not slept. She had spent the whole night making final adjustments to the visor, checking every connection, testing every circuit. Her hands were steady, even though her heart was not. Taiho had gone home hours ago. The laboratory was empty and quiet. This was how Yuna wanted it. If something went wrong, she did not want anyone else to be hurt. She picked up the visor and held it gently. It was lighter than it looked. The smooth surface reflected nothing because there were no lights on in the room. Yuna liked the darkness. It felt honest. The darkness did not pretend to be something it was not. She took a deep breath. Then she put the visor over her eyes. At first, there was nothing. Just the familiar darkness she had known her whole life. She waited. Her fingers found the small button on the side of the visor and pressed it. The visor hummed softly. She felt a strange tingling sensation in her head, like tiny needles pressing against her thoughts. The neural connection was forming. The visor was reaching into her brain, finding the pathways that other devices had never been able to reach. And then light. Yuna gasped. Her hands flew to her face, touching the visor, making sure it was real. Colors exploded in her mind. Not the colors other people saw. Something different. Something deeper. She saw the walls of her laboratory as flowing rivers of energy, blue and gold and silver. She saw the heat rising from her equipment, red and orange waves dancing in the air. She saw the electricity running through the wires, thin lines of white fire connecting everything together. She was seeing. For the first time in 32 years, she was seeing. Tears ran down her face. She did not try to stop them. She stood in the middle of her laboratory and turned in a slow circle, looking at everything. The table where she worked. The chair where she sat. The door that led to the corridor outside. Everything was alive with light and energy. Everything was beautiful. She walked to the door. Her steps were unsteady. She was not used to navigating with her eyes, but the visor helped. It showed her the shapes of things, the edges and surfaces, spaces between objects. Slowly, carefully, she opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The station was waking up. Yuna could see people moving in the distance. Humans and aliens, all of them glowing with their own inner light. She saw a group of Mora walking past, their insect-like bodies shining with cold blue energy. She saw a human crew member, warm and red, carrying a box of supplies. And then she saw the Velith. There were 3 of them, walking together at the end of the corridor. Their skin glowed with the beautiful patterns everyone knew. Soft greens and yellows and pinks, shifting and flowing like water. This was their language. This was how they spoke. But Yuna saw something else, beneath the visible light, hidden in frequencies that human eyes could never detect. There was another layer of communication. Secret signals. Hidden messages. The Velith were not just speaking to each other with the patterns everyone could see. They were also speaking in a language that was invisible. Yuna's blood turned cold. She understood what she was seeing. The visor was translating the hidden signals into words she could understand. Words that appeared in her mind like thoughts that were not her own. The Deep Fleet confirms the timeline, one Velith was saying in the secret language. 3 solar cycles until arrival. All scout reports must be completed before then. The humans suspect nothing, another responded. They are too busy trying to understand our surface language. They will never see what is beneath. The station will be the first target. All 12 species will fall. The galaxy will belong to us. Yuna pressed herself against the wall. Her heart was pounding so hard, she thought it might break. The Velith walked past her, their beautiful surface language, telling a story about trade negotiations and peaceful cooperation. But beneath that surface, they were planning something terrible. War. They were planning war. The Deep Fleet. Scout reports. The station as the first target. Yuna's mind raced, putting the pieces together. The Velith had been here for years, pretending to be peaceful traders. But they were not traders at all. They were scouts. They were spies. They were gathering information about every species on the station, learning their weaknesses, counting their soldiers. And in 3 solar cycles, their fleet would arrive to destroy everything. Yuna pulled off the visor. The world went dark again. But the darkness did not help. She could still hear the Velith walking away. She could still feel the cold fear spreading through her body. She knew the truth now. She had seen what no one else could see. But what could she do about it? She was one person, a blind engineer with a prototype visor that no one knew about. If she told people what she had seen, would they believe her? The Velith were respected. They were powerful. They had been on the station for decades, building trust with every species. If Yuna accused them of planning an invasion, people would think she was crazy. They would think her visor was broken. They would think she was lying, but she had to try. She put the visor back on. The world exploded into light again. She looked down the corridor, watching the Velith disappear around a corner. Their hidden signals were still visible, still speaking of war and conquest. Yuna had never been a soldier. She had never been a leader. She was just an engineer who wanted to build things that help people. But she had seen the truth, and she could not pretend that she had not. She turned and walked in the other direction. Her steps were faster now, more confident. She knew where she needed to go. She needed to find Ambassador Gina, humanity's leader on the station. She needed to warn everyone before it was too late. The war was coming, and Yuna was the only one who could see it. Ambassador Gina was old but not weak. She had served humanity for 40 years, fighting battles with words instead of weapons. She had negotiated treaties with species that saw humans as nothing more than clever animals. She had kept the peace when war seemed certain. But she had never heard anything like what Yuna was telling her now. You were saying the Veleth have a hidden language, Gina said slowly. A secret way of communicating that no one can see. Yes. Yuna stood in the ambassador's office, still wearing the visor. Through it, she could see Gina as a warm shape of orange and red light. The ambassador's heart was beating faster than normal. She was afraid, even if her voice did not show it. And you are saying this hidden language reveals they are planning to invade the station. To invade everyone. In 3 solar cycles, Yuna confirmed. Their fleet is called the Deep Fleet. It is already on its way. Gina was quiet for a long time. Yuna watched her energy shift and change. Doubt, fear, anger. All of these emotions were visible to the visor, painted in colors that danced across the ambassador's body. This is a very serious accusation, Gina finally said. The Veleth have been our allies for 20 years. They have traded with us, shared technology with us. If I accuse them of this without proof, it could start the very war you are trying to prevent. Yuna had expected this. She reached up and removed the visor from her face. The world went dark, as it always did. But she held the visor out toward the ambassador. See for yourself, she said. Jina hesitated. Then she took the visor and put it on. The change in her was immediate. Yuna heard the ambassador gasp. She heard her stand up from her chair, heard her footsteps as she walked to the window that looked out over the station's central plaza. I can see everything, Gina whispered. The energy, the heat, the light. It is beautiful. She paused. And there are Veleth in the plaza. I can see their surface language. And beneath it, her voice trailed off. Yuna waited. They are talking about weapons, Gina said, her voice shaking now. They are talking about which species will be easiest to kill. They are laughing about it. They think it is funny that no one knows. Gina pulled off the visor. Even without seeing her face, Yuna knew the ambassador was pale. How long have they been doing this? Gina asked. I do not know. Centuries, maybe. The visor shows me what is happening now, but I cannot see the past. Gina sat back down heavily. Yuna heard the chair creak under her weight. We need to tell the other species. The Mora, the Krith, all of them. If we work together, maybe we can stop this. They will not believe us, Yuna said. Not without proof they can see with their own eyes. I need to make more visors. I need to give them to the leaders of every species on the station. How long will that take? Yuna calculated quickly. 3 days. Maybe 4. We may not have that long. A sound at the door made both women freeze. Yuna heard it slide open. She heard footsteps. Soft footsteps. Too soft to be human. You do not have that long at all, said a voice. Yuna recognized the voice. It was Doru, a young Veleth who worked in the trading sector. Doru had always been kind to Yuna. Unlike other Veleth, Doru had never treated humans with contempt. Sometimes, Doru would visit her laboratory just to talk. Yuna had almost considered Doru a friend. Now she was not sure what Doru was. You have seen us, Doru said. The words were calm, almost sad. You have seen what we really are. Gina moved. Yuna heard her reach for something on her desk. A weapon, probably. Wait, Doru said quickly. Please, I am not here to hurt you. I am not here to stop you. Then why are you here? Yuna asked. Her voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. Because I have been waiting for this moment for my entire life. The room went quiet. Yuna put the visor back on and looked at Doru. The young Veleth was glowing with soft colors. But beneath the surface language, Yuna could see something she had not expected. Shame, grief, hope. Not all Veleth want the war, Doru said. Some of us have lived among other species for too long. We have made friends. We have learned that other beings are not just enemies to be conquered. Doru's light flickered. We have tried to fight the deep fleet from within, but we have never had proof. We have never had a way to show others the truth. Doru stepped closer. Yuna did not step back. You have given us that proof, Doru continued. Your visor. It shows what we have tried to explain for generations. Now, for the first time, someone outside our species can see us, can understand us, can help us. Help you do what? Gina asked. Her voice was hard, suspicious. Stop the invasion. Save this station. Save everyone. Doru turned to face Yuna directly. There are others like me, Velith, who do not want to be monsters. But we are afraid. We are outnumbered. The deep fleet is powerful, and it has controlled our people for centuries. Yuna listened. Through the visor, she could see that Doru was telling the truth. The colors of emotion could not lie. You want us to trust you, Yuna said. I want you to let me help, Doru replied. I know the Deep Fleet's plans. I know their weaknesses. And I know how to reach the other Velith who think like me. Doru's voice dropped to a whisper. We have been invisible for too long, hiding our true feelings because we thought no one would understand. But you can see us now. You can see everything. Yuna reached up and touched the visor. She had come here to save humanity, to save the station. She had not expected to find an ally among the enemy. She had not expected to find hope in the last place she would ever look. Then help us, she said finally. Show us how to stop the war. Doru's light shifted. For a moment, Yuna thought she saw something like a smile. Together, Doru said. We will do it together. The conspiracy had been unveiled. The enemy had become an ally. And the real fight was about to begin. The news spread faster than anyone expected. Ambassador Gina contacted Earth's military through secret channels. Yuna worked without rest, building more visors as quickly as her hands could move. And Doru reached out to the hidden network of Velith dissenters, the ones who had been waiting in shadows for a chance to fight back. Within 2 days, the leaders of every species on Harmony's edge had seen the truth. They had put on the visors and watched the Velith communicate in their hidden language. They had heard the plans for invasion, the counting of soldiers, the laughter about how easily the other species would fall. Demora were the first to confirm what they saw. Their leader, a tall insect-like being with eyes like black stones, spoke to the assembled council. We have lost 3 colonies in the past 100 years, the Mora leader said. We call them disasters, accidents. Now we understand. They were not accidents at all. The Krith agreed. Their hives had been destroyed without explanation. Their people had died by the millions. And all along, the Velith had smiled and offered condolences, pretending to be friends. But the alliance of species was not fast enough. The Deep Fleet saw what was happening. Their scouts on the station reported that the secret was no longer secret. The other species were sharing technology. They were preparing defenses. They were talking to each other in ways they had never talked before. So the Deep Fleet changed its plans. They did not wait 3 solar cycles. They came now. Yuna was in her laboratory when the alarm started. Red lights flashed across the walls. Through the visor, she could see the energy of the station shifting, becoming chaotic and afraid. Taiho burst through the door. Ships, he said, breathing hard. Hundreds of ships. They came out of nowhere. They are surrounding the station. Yuna stood up. She had known this moment would come. She had hoped for more time. But hope was a luxury she could not afford anymore. Where is Ambassador Gina? The command center. She is trying to organize the defense. And Doru? Taiho hesitated. I do not know. The Velith dissenters were supposed to meet at the trading sector. But everything is chaos now. Yuna grabbed the remaining visors from her workbench. There were 12 of them. Not enough for everyone, but enough for the people who needed them most. "Come with me," she said to Taiho. "We need to get these to the ships." They ran through the corridors of the station. All around them, people were panicking. Humans, Mora, Krith, and a dozen other species rushed in different directions, not knowing where to go or what to do. The Velith on the station had disappeared. Either they were hiding, or they had gone to join the attackers. Yuna and Taiho reached the docking bay just as the first explosions hit the station. The floor shook beneath their feet. Yuna fell, and Taiho caught her arm. "Are you okay?" "Yes, keep moving." They pushed through the crowds until they found the military vessels. Earth ships were small compared to the Velith fleet. They were old, underpowered, but they were all humanity had. Yuna handed the visors to the ship commanders one by one. "Put these on," she told each of them. "They will let you see the Velith communications in real time. You will know what they are planning before they do it." The commanders were skeptical at first, but when they put on the visors and saw the hidden signals from the enemy fleet, their doubts disappeared. "This is incredible," one commander said. "I can see them talking to each other. I know exactly where they are going to attack. Then stop them." Yuna said. The battle began. Yuna watched from the station's command center as Earth ships flew out to meet the deep fleet. Through her visor, she could see everything. Every enemy signal, every hidden order, every plan the Velith made. The visors changed everything. The Velith had relied on their secret communication for centuries. They had never needed to fight an enemy who could hear them. Their attacks were coordinated, but now that coordination was a weakness. Every time they sent an order, the Allied ships knew about it. Every time they tried to surprise the defenders were already waiting. The first Velith ships began to fall, but the deep fleet was still massive. There were hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, all of them filled with soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. The Allied forces were outnumbered 10 to 1. Even with the visors, they could not win through strength alone. And then something unexpected happened. 3 Velith ships broke formation. They turned away from the battle, but they did not run. Instead, they turned their weapons on their own fleet. A voice came over all communications. It was translated by the visor into words everyone could understand. "My name is Doru. I speak for the Velith who do not want war. We have lived among you. We have learned from you. We have seen that you are not enemies. You are friends." The voice was shaking but strong. "We will not let the deep fleet destroy what we have come to love. We choose a different future. We choose you." More Velith ships turned. 5, 10, 20. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough to create chaos in the deep fleet's formation. Enough to give the Allied forces a chance. The Battle of Harmony's Edge lasted for 12 hours. It was brutal and bloody. Ships were destroyed on both sides. Lives were lost that could never be replaced. But when it was over, the station still stood. The deep fleet was broken. Its remaining ships fled into the darkness of space, scattered and leaderless. And on the station, Velith, who had turned against their own people, stood beside the species they had saved. Yuna watched it all through her visor. She watched the fear turn to hope. She watched enemies become allies. She watched the galaxy change. When the battle was finally over, Doru found her in the command center. The young Velith was injured. Patches of light flickered unevenly across their skin. "We did it," Doru said quietly. "We actually did it." Yuna nodded. She was too tired to speak, too tired to feel anything except relief. But she knew the war was not over. The deep fleet was broken, but not destroyed. They would come back. They would try again, This was only the beginning, but it was a beginning full of hope. And that was more than anyone had expected. 2 years passed. The war did not end quickly. The Deep Fleet had been broken at Harmony's edge, but its pieces scattered across the galaxy like seeds of hatred. They attacked colonies. They destroyed supply ships. They tried again and again to rebuild what had been lost, but they always failed. The Visor technology spread to every allied species. Ships could see the hidden Velos signals. Soldiers could predict attacks before they happened. And slowly, battle by battle, the Deep Fleet was pushed back into the darkness from which it had come. The final battle happened in a dead system far from any living world. 300 allied ships surrounded the last of the Deep Fleet. The Veloth Admiral, an ancient being named Kareth, refused to surrender. He gave the order to fight to the death. His own crew did not follow that order. Half of the Veloth soldiers on the remaining ships were dissenters. They had been waiting for this moment, waiting for a chance to end the war without more blood. When Kareth gave his command, they turned off their weapons and opened their doors. The war was over. Yuna did not see the final battle. She was on Harmony's edge, in her laboratory, working on her newest project. The station had been rebuilt. It was larger now, stronger, filled with species who had learned to trust each other through shared pain and shared victory. She heard about the surrender through a message from Ambassador Gina. The old woman's voice was tired but happy. "It is done," Gina said. "The Deep Fleet is finished. You saved us all, Yuna." Yuna did not feel like a hero. She felt tired. She felt old, even though she was only 34. The past 2 years had taken something from her that she could not name. Peace, innocence, the simple joy of building things without thinking about war. But she still had her work. And she still had her friend's Teho knocked on her door that evening. His hair had gray in it now. The war had aged everyone. "Doru is here," he said. Yuna smiled. She put down her tools and turned toward the door. Doru walked in slowly. The young Veloth had changed too. The patterns on their skin were different now, softer, less hidden. The dissenters had created a new way of speaking, a way that combined the surface language everyone could see with the hidden language that had once been secret. Nothing was hidden anymore. "You look tired," Doru said. "I am always tired," Yuna replied. "Sit down. Talk to me." They sat together in the small laboratory. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Ships flew past carrying cargo and passengers. Life was returning to normal, or at least a new kind of normal. "Do you ever regret it?" Doru asked after a while. "Regret what?" "Seeing us. Seeing what we really were." Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the moment she had first put on the visor. The moment she had seen light for the first time in her life. The moment she had discovered the terrible truth about the Voth. "I regret the war," she said finally. "I regret the people who died. The ships that burned. The families that were broken." She paused. "But seeing you? Seeing the truth? No, I do not regret that. Why not?" Yuna reached up and touched the visor on her face. She wore it always now. It had become part of her. Through it, she could see Doru's emotions glowing beneath their skin. Curiosity, warmth, something that might have been love. In the Veloth way of understanding that word. "Because the most dangerous thing in the universe is being invisible," she said. "Not in the way I was blind, but in the way you were hidden. You spent centuries hiding because you thought other species could not understand you. You thought you had to conquer or be conquered." She leaned forward. "You were wrong. We just needed to learn how to look. And once we saw you, really saw you, everything changed. Not because we were afraid of you, but because we could finally understand you." Doru's light shifted. The patterns moved across their skin in ways that Yuna had learned to read. It was something like laughter, something like wonder. Humans are strange, Doru said. Yes, Yuna agreed. We are. You look into darkness and find light. You find enemies and make them friends. You take something broken and make it beautiful. We try, Yuna said. We do not always succeed, but we try. Doru stood up. They walked to the window and looked out at the stars. The Deep Fleet believed that hiding was power, Doru said quietly. They believed that secrets were weapons, but they were wrong. Secrets made us lonely. Hiding made us afraid. And in the end, it destroyed us. Not destroyed, Yuna said. Changed. She joined Doru at the window. Together, they watched the ships flying past. Some of them were Velith ships. Some were human. Some belonged to species that did not have names humans could pronounce. What will you do now? Doru asked. Yuna smiled. It was a real smile, warm and bright. The same thing I have always done, she said. I will build things. I will create technology that helps people understand each other. I will keep trying to bring light to dark places. Even though you were born blind? Especially because I was born blind. Yuna touched the visor again. I know what it is like to live in darkness. I know how much it matters to find a way to see. And I want everyone to have that chance. Not just humans, everyone. Doru's light glowed warm and golden. Then I will help you, they said. For as long as I live, I will help you build bridges between species. I will help you bring light to the darkness. Yuna reached out and took Doru's hand. It was cool and smooth, like holding polished glass. Together, she said. Together, Doru agreed. Outside the window, the stars burned on. Somewhere in the vast darkness, new secrets were forming. New enemies were rising. New challenges were waiting to be faced, but harmony's edge remained. And in the small laboratory, a blind woman who had learned to see continued her work, building tools that revealed truth, creating connections that could not be broken, because that was what humans did. They looked into the darkness, and they found ways to illuminate it. They took enemies and made them friends. They turned secrets into understanding, even when no one believed they could, especially then. Yuna put down her tools and closed her eyes. Through the visor, she could still see the light of the universe flowing around her. Stars and ships and people, all connected by invisible threads of energy and hope. She had been born blind, but she had learned to see more clearly than anyone else in the galaxy, and she would never stop looking.